On the night of the 22nd of November 2019, police in Beaufort, South Carolina receive numerous 911 calls reporting an incident in the city.
The dispatcher comes across the radio and says, we're getting multiple reports of shots fired and that there was a single vehicle accident.
Dispatch, Ms. 10.
Ms. 10. We're getting additional calls regarding this accident that the driver of the Mustang is not breathing.
When they arrived there, they found the victim, Ethan Bosworth, outside his vehicle on the driver's side on the ground. They checked, there was no pulse. He was very blue in appearance.
The victim had been shot, and then as a result of being shot, lost control of the vehicle, and then the vehicle crashed.
The victim, 20-year-old Ethan Bosworth, is rushed to Beaufort Memorial Hospital by ambulance, where he undergoes emergency surgery for his injuries.
A total of 3 bullets entered Ethan's torso region and subsequently resulted in his death.
Witnesses had seen these 3 kids in hooded sweatshirts running away afterwards.
The search for Ethan's attacker leads investigators into the murky world of social media threats and intimidation, and ultimately, to a green-eyed killer.
It was a crime of passion, it was a crime of jealousy.
Jealousy was the sole reason this murder happened.
Beaufort County, South Carolina, attracts a wide variety of residents and visitors to the area.
It boasts these picture-perfect movie set areas, so naturally they have filmed some movies there, like The Big Chill, Forrest Gump, Prince of Tides, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, and so it's very much a tourist attraction.
It's where people come for vacation, but at the same time, it's still a small town. You go to the grocery store and you run into people you know.
There's lots of families that are from Beaufort, stretching way back. You have a lot of military people like myself.
Parris Island is in Beaufort County. That's the depot where they train the United States Marine Corps. And a lot of times people who get out of the military will settle here in Beaufort. You have retirees that move here because the weather is ideal. They like living here because the climate is just absolutely magnificent.
On the night of the 22nd of November 2019, officers from Beaufort Police Department receive a 911 call to report a car that has crashed into a tree.
The 911 calls start at 10:19 p.m. and they start as a car accident.
911, where's your emergency?
There's a car accident. They hit the tree 2 houses down from 2714 Wardell Road.
Simultaneously, though, they are getting shots fired calls in the area.
911, where's your emergency? There was just gunshots from Wardell Road. The car stopped, the Mustang stopped, and then shots were fired, and they left. My son heard the gunshot, and there's another guy on the corner of the road. He heard the gunshot, and don't know if there's anybody down the road there that's been shot or not.
When the call came out, I was on Boundary Street, which is like one of the main roads through town. The dispatcher came across the radio and said that there was a call of shots fired on Waddell Road.
Any calls for shots being fired in this area? There is a Mustang that hit a tree or a fence or something and is unconscious. Stand by for scene.
EMS 24 en route MVA.
This resulted in a rapid response by multiple City of Beaufort officers to descend on the area to first render aid to the victim and also try to determine what was occurring.
I already knew at that time that the vehicle crashing was going to be related to the shooting and that it was either going to be somebody seriously injured or dead. I immediately, threw on the lights and siren and headed to that location.
Officers arrive at the scene to find a black Ford Mustang sports car smashed against a broken tree, and the driver in a seriously injured condition.
On the road where this happened is Port Royal's jurisdiction, and then immediately after it turned to ours, so we had Port Royal Police and Beaufort County deputies there as well.
The first responders that arrived on scene tried their very best to render medical aid to the victim. They began with CPR, retrieved an AED from their vehicle, and while they were retrieving the AED, that's when the ambulance arrived and was able to take him to the Beaufort Memorial Hospital. The victim was identified as Ethan Bosworth. This was established through his girlfriend, who had reached out to the Beaufort County Dispatch Center over concerns on the whereabouts of Ethan.
Investigators move quickly to tape off and protect the crime scene for forensic examination.
The crime scene was at least 100 yards. As I walked down the street, I wasn't seeing any evidence, such as the suspect dropping a wallet, dropping any personal property. I didn't see any firearms that had been thrown.
I get to the crime scene and there's already 1 or 2 patrol officers there. It's the middle of the night, it's dark. The whole area is swarming with emergency services personnel, and you're trying to get information. So everybody that you talk to may have a little piece here and there, and then it's taking all those pieces and putting them together. It's a lot of moving parts at one time.
The absence of a shell casing at the scene leads police to form an early theory about the murder weapon used in the crime.
Shell casings are just like a fingerprint. They can be forensically tied to a firearm if you recover such. There was no evidence of any shell casings, which could be that the suspect had a revolver to use in the commission of the crime. So then I began to concentrate my efforts on the victim's vehicle.
The vehicle had struck a tree and then come to rest against another vehicle. One of the back windows on the passenger side was shattered. It looked like a bullet impact.
It's while detectives are still examining the crime scene that they receive news that victim Ethan Bosworth has died in hospital.
Ethan Bosworth died not long later, shortly before midnight that night at the hospital.
The cause of death was a result of bullet wounds. There were a total of 3 bullets that had entered Ethan's torso region and subsequently resulted in his death.
Ethan's death is now classified as a homicide, and a murder investigation is launched by Beaufort Police Department.
There were 3 individuals that were near the victim at the time of the incident. Based upon what was being communicated to the dispatch center,
the victim had pulled off to the side of the road and was interacting with 3 males. One of them produced a gun and fired, and then all 3 of them ran off. The victim's vehicle then accelerated away, lost control, and crashed.
But there was very limited descriptions of these suspects. It was just more or less described as silhouettes.
The best witnesses that we had were between 2 and 3 blocks away. So, they were able to look down and see, figures, but they couldn't see details or faces or anything like that.
So we understood at the time that the forensics was very critical. I noticed on the exterior of the vehicle, there was a great deal of condensation that was building up, and I felt it was appropriate that this vehicle be towed to a secure environment, such as the City of Beaufort Police Department, in order for us to process the vehicle in a contained environment.
Investigators now speak to Ethan's girlfriend, who was the last person to see him alive on the night he was murdered.
She actually was the one who made a 911 call to the police because when she woke up from a nap that night, Ethan was not there. Prior to Ethan leaving, he was on Snapchat with somebody that he was messaging. And she remembers that his emoji had a blue bandana on him.
It now appears that Ethan had planned to go and meet the person behind the blue bandana emoji.
Ethan told her, "I have to run out, but if I don't come back, something bad has happened and you need to call the police."
The day he was murdered, he called me and he did seem nervous, like something was going on.
A cell phone was located on the driver's seat of the vehicle. We were fortunate enough that The girlfriend knew the passcode to the cell phone. It enabled us to unlock the cell phone and see immediately that there was Snapchat messaging from an individual identified as Cam Cam.
17-year-old Cameron Kim lived in nearby Ladies Island and had attended the same high school as Ethan Bosworth.
This person was a very bad person, and Ethan knew that. The other thing about Ethan was he just didn't have that thing in his head that stopped him from going. He was the kid that was just gonna go.
Cameron believed that Ethan was having a relationship with his girlfriend.
The victim had apparently dated a girl that dated Cameron Kim, and he was very upset about that, very jealous, kind of enraged by that.
Whatever the meeting Ethan was having with Cameron that night, there was evidence to suggest he was scared, concerned so much that he told his girlfriend he was expressing an interest in purchasing a firearm. When she questioned Ethan of why he was trying to purchase a firearm, he said that he has enemies here in Buford and he didn't have any with him.
Before social media, you might have had high school kids arguing in the hallway or passing nasty notes in class or even having a fight after school. Nowadays, social media outlets like Snapchat allow people at a distance to diss each other, to friend each other, to fight, to argue, or to come up with conclusions about loyalties, friendship, and jealousies that may be misplaced, that maybe in person you could work out.
Beaufort County, South Carolina, November 2019. 20-year-old Ethan Bosworth has been murdered while sitting in his Ford Mustang sports car. Witnesses near the crime scene see 3 unidentified youths fleeing the area under the cover of darkness. A murder investigation is swiftly launched by Beaufort Police Department to catch Ethan's killer.
Ethan had grown up here in Beaufort and had just returned to his hometown. He had kept in contact and was friends with many people here in Beaufort and was well known and respected in the community.
Ethan went to boarding school in a school near Atlanta, Brandon Hall. It's expensive. The tuition for a student who was living there was more than $50,000 a year. It was a college prep school, very high standards.
Ethan went back to school, finished his high school, lived with his dad for a little while, and then with my mom.
He had a new girlfriend. He was a good kid, just starting over.
Extensive searches of the crime scene and follow-up interviews with witnesses failed to provide investigators with any firm leads.
At the initial portion of the investigation, we had no idea what the motive was.
We did not have any shell cases that were collected on scene. We had no fingerprints. We had no DNA.
It was a crime scene that had no suspects and a limited amount of witness information.
Investigators begin to receive numerous tip-offs from the community of Beaufort.
People start talking, and the people that know stuff, they may not call us directly, but they start talking, and so people that are in those circles, they hear things and pick up on things and direct us where we need to go.
Social media is crazy. It's crazy how graphic it can be and how much information is out there. Everybody was reaching out to us, calling us. People that went to school with him in Atlanta were finding out things on social media. And then it was hard for us as the family to not try to scrub social media to see what other people are saying about it.
This case involved a lot of tell me what you know, and it really started with Ethan's girlfriend at the time. She was interviewed by police pretty soon after this happened, and she's able to give the police a name for the Snapchat user, and that was Cam.
We may not know a defendant's Snapchat or other social media account, but the community knows. And it might not be somebody that's willing to necessarily testify, but they will pull an officer aside and say, hey, you need to look this way, you need to look that way, this is what I'm hearing. And that kind of guides and steers the direction where the investigation goes.
Throughout the investigation, it was developed and learned that Cameron Kim, that was his Snapchat handle, and his emoji had a blue bandana on him.
Cameron Kim soon becomes a significant person of interest in the case, thanks to numerous tip-offs from the community of Beaufort.
Right from the beginning, there was a great deal of suspicion that was focused upon Cameron Kim. It was a recurring name that we kept hearing over and over again, that there was a animosity between Cameron and the victim, Ethan, over a juvenile girl.
Investigators learned that Cameron Kim's girlfriend added Ethan Bosworth on Snapchat after he returned to live in Beaufort.
Cameron at Beaufort High had a girlfriend, and it was when that girlfriend on her social media Snapchat page listed Ethan as a friend of hers that evidently Cameron got extremely jealous.
And after that contact occurred, Cameron heard Ethan's voice in the background and called him up and began to threaten violence against him, saying that he was going to go by his residence and shoot it up.
We spoke with many of Ethan's friends, and they were able to tell us about this motive that was out there, and the motive was jealousy from Cameron.
Whatever Cameron Kim's girlfriend's motive in listing Ethan as a friend, Cameron Kim evidently jumped to a jealous conclusion that there was something between the two of them.
Ethan's cell phone records and social media activity are examined by the digital forensics team.
The initial investigation shifted towards social media. Once we were able to unlock Ethan's phone, we saw the correspondence on Snapchat between Ethan and Cameron, and that began to focus our attention on Cameron.
Cell phone records were crucial. They were able to show us that Cameron Kim was the last person that spoke with Ethan, and it was 2 minutes prior to the shooting.
We realized the importance of needing to maintain this, because sometimes Snapchat messages, they will disappear and go away and you can't retrieve such. So it was immediately photographed to show the call log on Snapchat that was occurring between Ethan and the suspect.
Kim's violent and threatening behavior towards his own circle of friends leads some of them to come forward to the police with information crucial to the investigation.
The witnesses that we interviewed who were friends with him, they had a hesitation about Cameron. They had a level of fear of him.
They were able to tell us that Cameron had threatened Ethan in the past, that he had told him he was going to put a bullet in him, that Cameron Kim would repeatedly tell people that he was ready to catch a body. He had a reputation of carrying this gun on him at all times. They all knew he owned this revolver, and they didn't want him to know that they had seen it and that they were going to go to the police.
We spoke to an Evan Russell. He was absolutely terrified of Cameron Kim. He explained that he was at a restaurant with an ex-girlfriend of Ethan Bosworth, and he overheard in the restaurant that staff were talking about the homicide and saying that Cameron Kim was involved in it.
Another more disturbing piece of information emerges about Kim's behavior following the murder.
He was beginning to brag about what he did on social media.
Through Snapchat, Cameron Kim was posting about it. The day after he posted, "I caught a body," and they all knew that this was in reference to Ethan, because by that point, the news of Ethan's death had come out.
He was talking to one of his friends on Snapchat, and when she confronted him saying, "Are you talking about the death of Ethan Bosworth?" his response was simply, "Bye."
One important tip-off leads investigators to one of Kim's closest friends, Jason McFadden.
We spoke to two witnesses that were quite pivotal on the incident night that provided great information about the activities of Jason McFadden and Cameron Kim.
Jason McFadden was actually a best friend of Kim. They had been best friends since the 3rd grade, and Jason ended up being our only eyewitness to the shooting.
One of the friends of Jason McFadden had received phone calls on Snapchat begging for her to come pick both Cameron up and Jason up. They needed to get out of there, that they had been involved in something, and were begging this person to pick them up. Based upon the information that we received and that McFadden and Cameron Kim were trying to get out of the area, we had an opportunity to interview Jason McFadden at his residence.
Jason McFadden was interviewed by the police and ultimately did give the police a video recorded statement and said what happened that night.
He explained to us that he was at a party down the street, that they had been drinking, and denied that anybody was involved in the homicide of Ethan. When he was pressed further and questioned, he seemed like he wanted to get something off his chest. And I looked at him and I said, "Jason, did you shoot Ethan?" And he said he did not. And then I moved to transition into my next question. Did you see who shot Ethan? And he told me he did.
What did you witness, Jason?
I was walking home when that happened, and I heard the shots, and I turned around and I saw the car drive off past me, and I just started running.
Who did you see doing the shots? This is important, Jason.
253 South Track.
Cameron.
Tell what do we agree?
What kind of gun did he have?
32 revolver.
A what?
32 revolver.
32 revolver. What happened to that revolver?
I don't know. I just started running when I heard the shots.
He identified that the shooter was Cameron Kim, that he had used a 32 revolver, that when they were walking westbound together after leaving the house party, he saw the victim pull up.
Ethan Bosworth was driving his prize Mustang, that black Mustang, and pulled up alongside Cameron Kim, who shot him 3 times through the passenger window.
Jason McFadden heard several gunshots, looked back, saw Cameron reaching into the passenger side of the vehicle, pulling his arm out, and Ethan's vehicle crashing out of control.
Ethan lost control of the car. It rolled and it smashed into a tree, which fell down on another car.
Jason McFadden said he fled the area, ran back to his residence, and later that night, Cameron Kim would show up at his house. He no longer had the gun with him, but Jason McFadden told us that he was troubled by the fact that Cameron Kim expressed being very happy by this homicide, that he felt good that he finally killed someone.
Armed with the testimony from McFadden, investigators now move to arrest Cameron Kim for the murder of Ethan Bosworth. Beaufort Police Department in South Carolina are closing in on the killer of 20-year-old Ethan Bosworth. Ethan was shot 3 times at close range as he sat in his car, and the young student died a short time later in hospital. Investigators now believe 17-year-old Cameron Kim was responsible after receiving a video testimony from Kim's friend Jason McFadden accusing him of the murder.
This is important, Jason.
253 South Track.
After we hear the information from McFadden, we knew we had enough to arrest Cameron on probable cause for murder.
Once you know that it's him and you have the evidence and you've got everything pieced together, you go to a judge for the arrest warrant.
Cameron Kim was arrested almost 2 weeks, 13 days after the murder of Ethan.
The night prior, he was arrested for a minor criminal offense in an adjacent jurisdiction. I jump inside my patrol vehicle and we rush and descend on the Beaufort Detention Center because he was getting out that morning on the minor offense. And as Cameron Kim is walking out of the detention center, all Beaufort City's officers come upon him and arrest him for the murder of Ethan Bosworth.
Having secured their prime suspect, police bring Cameron Kim in for questioning around his involvement in the murder of Ethan Bosworth.
He was brought to the City of Beaufort Police Department because we wanted to interview him. We wanted to get statements from him, and he agreed to an interview with law enforcement. You're being charged for the murder against victim Ethan Bosworth. Okay. So what do you have to say about that?
I can't kill that boy. I know I'm getting accused, and I know that's what everybody's saying, but I know I killed that boy.
Then why?
I get text messages of that every day. People send me death threats. They don't kill me. I didn't kill that boy.
I knew it was going to be a tough interview with him. I did not feel as if he had any remorse for what he did. Jason McFadden had said that he was bragging about it. He was happy about it. So when both Master Sergeant Rayleigh and I went into the interview room, we approached it as, you did this. Why did you do this? You're not going to convince us that you didn't do it. We're trying to figure out why. Are you a serial killer? Or was it because Ethan was making advances to your girl? What was it? We're just simply trying to get into your mind and just find out the reason why.
Didn't do it.
But, you know, we know you did.
How do you know I did?
People have rolled on you?
People who?
They rolled on you.
That he say, she say, I want DNA, I want the gun, I want my fingerprints, I want all that. I didn't kill that boy.
We have your cell phone, we have other people's cell phones.
I know y'all have my cell phone. I handed it to y'all yesterday.
So you should know that puts you right there, right? You know cell phones are tracked, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that means it puts you at the scene of the crime. Okay?
He didn't want to talk about the gang that he formed. I had asked him directly, tell me about this gang you're forming. Now, have you been trying to form a gang here in Beaufort?
No.
No? You don't aspire to form a gang?
No, if you're talking about that YJB, that's a little group, just me and my two other friends have.
Who are your two other friends?
Jason and Matt.
He described it as a group called the Young Jack Boys. We just hang out. We do drugs. What does this group consist of? What does this group do?
I mean, we don't do anything. We just sit and drink, smoke weed, and we chill.
He was asked about a firearm at this party. Did you have a gun with you that night?
No.
You weren't taking pictures, flashing a gun?
No.
And posting it all over social media?
Not me. I didn't have any.
He initially denied anything about a firearm until we pressed him further and questioned him. Did he admit to the fact that there was a firearm there? Did you see a gun there?
Yeah.
What did you see for a gun? Describe it.
It was just a fucking little revolver.
A revolver? Were you featured in any of the photographs that the gun was featured in?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of? Okay. There were pictures of him holding a revolver in his hand that was disseminated on Snapchat of him loading this revolver with bullets right in his hand.
You guys were hanging out at the house. What were you doing?
Drinking, getting drunk, smoking weed.
Okay. What time did you leave that house?
Never left.
You never left?
I stayed there, all three of us.
All three of you stayed? Well, that's a lie.
He was insistent upon the fact that he never left that party. He was there the entire night, so he was not involved in the homicide.
You know we've talked to everybody that you're close to. We've done search warrants. So we're not here by accident, right? You already know everybody's pointing the finger at you. You can either tell us the truth.
I'm telling you the truth, man.
And maybe something happened. It was an accident. I don't know.
I'm telling you the truth.
During the interview, we were trying to establish the motive for the crime. It was suspected that Cameron was very jealous over the fact that Ethan was associating with his girlfriend. And he was asked specifically during the interview, you're upset that Ethan's associating with your girlfriend? And he said, yeah, he was. It was my understanding the victim, Ethan, he was associating with her as well?
Yeah.
You were upset about that, right?
Yeah.
Why were you upset?
I was just tripping, I was drunk.
Were you afraid that he was moving in on Eve and she liked him more than you?
No, I was just drunk. I told him she called me saying she wanted to go get cigars and some food. He wouldn't take her home. And I said, well, put him on the phone. I told him to take my girlfriend home right now. She wanted to go home.
There was proof that there was an association. They were, in fact, hanging out.
Yeah, we sorted that out at everything.
How did you sort that out?
I ended up seeing him again, like a week after. He was like, yeah, I ain't trying to do nothing with your girl. We're just friends and all this and that. And I think for like a sister, I said, bro, I got you, bro. And I definitely, it was cool. I swear to God, it was cool.
So that didn't upset you? They were trying to move in on your girl?
He wasn't. He had a girlfriend. I was just tripping. I was drunk.
Ethan was staying at my mom's house in Buford for a little while, and I know Cameron came over to my mom's house and was violent with Ethan once on one occasion, yelling at him, and Ethan was worried about it.
At that point in time, we felt very confident that he was indeed jealous and angry and bitter that his girlfriend was associating with Ethan.
Kim becomes increasingly frustrated by the questions put to him by the investigators and demands to see an attorney.
I want an attorney.
You want a lawyer? Okay.
All right, well, we're gonna fill out some paperwork and we'll get you over to the jail.
Cameron Kim is charged with the murder of Ethan Bosworth and placed in custody pending a court date. Investigators must now prepare a solid case against Kim to ensure a successful outcome at trial. Beaufort County, South Carolina. 17-year-old Cameron Kim has been arrested and charged with the murder of 20-year-old Ethan Bosworth, who was shot dead in November 2019. The prosecution must now build their case and convince a jury beyond reasonable doubt that Kim murdered Ethan out of jealousy.
Prepping from a murder trial starts when I get the warrant. We have our own team of investigators through our solicitor's office, and we are in constant talks with the Beaufort City Police Department. And as soon as the warrant comes in, we go and meet in person with the investigator who made the arrest. We meet with as many witnesses as we can. We go and view the evidence once it's all available to be viewed.
Despite numerous testimonies from witnesses and evidence taken from social media accounts, the outcome of the case is still far from certain.
Due to this being a low country region of low-lying areas, there's a great deal of waterways. We never located the gun. We searched the region by foot. We even utilized the dive team to search a waterway, and we never recovered the firearm.
Witnesses who initially spoke to investigators now seem to be too afraid to testify in court.
I think that they were scared. They do not want to talk to me. They do not want to talk to the police, and more so, they do not want to get on the witness stand and testify. So that was a major issue that we had to face.
It appears that Kim still has a controlling hold over the people in his life, even from behind bars.
You have the ability to make phone calls from the detention center. When I began listening to those jail calls, I would hear him talking to his girlfriend. And Cameron Kim was always questioning where she was, who she was with, and if there was the slightest noise in the background, he would interrogate her over the phone, saying, is that somebody in the background? Is that another guy over your house?
We had a jail phone call where he's talking to his girlfriend about how Jason was a snitch and they needed to get Jason because Jason had snitched. He didn't say Jason was a liar. He didn't say anything like that. But in our world, a snitch is somebody who goes to the police and tells them the truth.
I don't think the girlfriend ever realized the degree of possessiveness he had over her. He wanted to monitor her entire life. He did not want her to have any degree of freedom. He wanted complete control and possession of her.
But one story from Kim's childhood provides a chilling insight into his troubled mind.
When Cameron Kim was arrested, his second grade teacher reached out to me and told me a very chilling story. When Cameron was in the second grade, he had a propensity to stab other children with pencils and scissors. And as a result of the actions of Cameron, he had to be moved to a different classroom with 4th graders in it by this teacher who was very strict. And he told his class, we're getting a 2nd grader in our class. And he explained to me the 2nd grader said, oh no, not Cameron. And he said, yes. The children in this classroom were actually scared to have Cameron come there to his class.
The case finally goes to trial in Beaufort County Courthouse in October 2021.
It was very traumatic. Nothing explains somebody killing your son. But I wanted to know everything that happened that night. Even if I had to see it and it was uncomfortable, that's how I processed it to get through.
I was able to get Jason McFadden on the stand. He was reluctant. He didn't want to do it. I was able to show the jury the pre-recorded video interview of him where he did tell the police that they were together at a party, that Kim had his revolver, and he saw Cameron Kim's arm go through Ethan Bosworth's driver's side window. He heard the gunshots, and then Cameron Kim took off running.
The evidence and motivation all revolved around jealousy and rage. It was the fact that Ethan Bosworth was associating with Cameron Kim's girlfriend. He did not like this. He expressed his displeasure for it, and that was the motivation.
The whole trial, you're worried, you're sitting there in the courtroom, wringing your hands and looking at the jury, and are they gonna convict him, and what are they thinking right now?
I was able to give them all the evidence I had, all the testimony I wanted them to hear, all the exhibits I wanted them to see. At that point, you just hope and pray that they see the truth that I had seen this whole time, and that they too see it and find him guilty.
With the witnesses that were at the scene, with the witnesses who were there with him when this incident occurred and told us what happened, and then the digital evidence, it all just wrapped it up in a really, tight bow to let us know, yes, this is the person who did this.
The jury retire to deliberate their verdict.
I always am nervous when the jury comes out. There's nothing scarier than when the bailiff says, we have a verdict, and then we have to wait for the verdict to be published. Because at the end of the day, you never know what 12 people are going to do.
Cameron Kim was convicted of murder and sentenced to 45 years in prison.
When the verdict is read, I can hear Ethan's family behind me. I can hear his mother, I can hear his father, his stepfather, and his sister, and his grandmother. They're all there. All the pews are filled with his friends. And the sigh of relief that they feel, it's like no other.
I wanted justice for my son. And Cameron going to jail for 45 years does not bring Ethan back. We all know that. But at least his younger sister, Eliza J., she doesn't have to worry about him for 45 years.
Justice was served. He got a sentence of 45 years in the Department of Corrections, but it will be very scary, in my opinion, when he's released.
Cameron Kim showed absolutely no remorse whatsoever. In fact, he was braggadocious about it. To him, it was a badge of honor instead of something to be ashamed of, which is quite disgusting.
The role of social media in this case provides a dark insight into the world young people live in today.
Social media just looks to be a bell that can't be unrung. People are so dependent on it. Kids use it in lieu of talking face-to-face, which is unfortunate because I think a lot of questions and problems can be ironed out face-to-face, reading people's emotions in person that look very different on social media.
Social media was extremely important in solving this case because it established that nexus between the victim and Cameron Kim. But some of the imagery that appeared on the social media was quite disturbing.
We uncovered the digital evidence of him, on social media, like not long before this murder with the actual murder weapon, and it's a revolver. You don't see a lot of revolvers involved in crimes like this.
On one of the videos on Snapchat that we were able to recover when we did a search warrant on the accounts associated with Cameron Kim and Jason McFadden is a video of Cameron Kim inside a vehicle, and he removes very quickly his hand, and he's holding a black revolver in his hand. It's pointed right at the camera. And that was very chilling to me when I saw that video, because At that point in time, I felt very confident that was the weapon that was used to kill Ethan. That was the last thing Ethan probably saw, was the barrel of that gun. And while he's pointing that gun right into the camera, he has a huge smile on his face, as if it's very exhilarating for him to be able to point this gun at the person holding the camera.
With Kim now safely behind bars, the community of Beaufort is left to reflect on this senseless crime.
Scientists have found that the human brain isn't fully formed in terms of its rationality and logic until you're in your early to mid-20s, maybe 24, 25. And so we look at teenagers and 20-somethings as on the verge of adulthood, but some of that brain chemistry hasn't caught up. And I think that that may be where a lot of this reaction to jealousy comes from.
Cameron Kim lived with his mother and stepdad. He had been in Beaufort since at least 3rd grade, but I don't know of anything bad that would have happened to him that could have led to this.
Cameron Kim had this ability to be very unsettling with people. Everyone you talked to wasn't surprised he was a suspect. Everybody believed very strongly he was behind this homicide.
I do think justice was served. I wish Cameron wasn't going to ever get out of jail. This kid was on the wrong path and he did something horrific. I would like to believe he could be rehabilitated in 45 years. I don't know. I feel sorry for him and his family. It's not just Ethan that was lost.
Ethan's family and friends remember the positive effect he had on everyone he met.
We love talking about Ethan. And we meet people and they ask us how many kids we have, and we say 2. And we'll get to the point in the conversation where we'll have to say that something happened to Ethan, he was murdered. And it makes people a little bit uncomfortable. And I have to say to them, I'm sorry if you're uncomfortable, but we like to talk about him. And he was a great kid.
He helped his father in his wood shop. He helped his mother in her pottery class. And he himself loved working on his cars and was evidently a whiz with anything mechanical.
His first car was an old white Ford pickup truck that I bought him, and he used to take the car apart. He was good with his hands, he was creative. After he passed away, this woman found my Facebook page and private messaged me, and she was a greeter at Walmart in Beaufort. And she said that Ethan would come in and he made her feel special, and he always made a point to talk to her, and she felt seen by him. And that's priceless. That's who Ethan was. So, yeah.